Okay guys, so this is a quick video on my Cybertron PC, Rhodium Ryzen gaming desktop, and all the upgrades that I have done to it. This used to be this PC right here for around 950 bucks. It's got the AMD Ryzen R7 1700, 8 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM, 1 terabyte SATA 3, 72 RPM hard disk drive, and mine didn't come with a Nvidia GeForce GTX 1050. It originally came with a AMD RX 480 and of course Windows 10 Home. And this is what it looks like right now, which is nowhere near what it used to be. In fact, this thing is way more powerful than what you get for $1,000. I purchased this from Best Buy for around, again, 950 bucks. And what I have in here now is actually no. Let's list off what is still in here from that original spec sheet. It still has the AMD Ryzen R7 1700, probably one of the best computers you could get for your buck right now. Absolutely beast of a CPU. It still has the 1 terabyte hard disk drive storage, and it still has that single. Actually, no, it still doesn't. I replaced that. Never mind. The RAM has been replaced. Let's see what else is in here. And pretty much the case. Case is the standard case that you get with the Rhodium Ryzen gaming desktop. Now, when I first got this, the first thing I did with it was to replace that RX 480 with a GTX 1070, which I featured in one of my earlier videos. It was an EVGA superclocked GTX 1070. And shortly after that, I found out that my friend wanted to buy a 1070. So I went ahead and sold him my 1070 because I found this GTX 1080 for around 30 bucks more than what I paid for on the 1070. So I sold my 1070, got this 1080, and also got the 650 watt power supply to power this GTX 1080. Now this GTX 1080 is from Gigabyte. It's the GeForce GTX 1080 WindForce Overclock Edition. This is not the G1 Gaming Edition due to the fact it's got no LEDs, but everything else about it is pretty much the same from the G1 Gaming Edition. I also picked up a, let's see, it's an MSI B350M Micro ATX Gaming Pro. It's an AM4 socket for the Ryzen CPU, of course. It features two DIMM slots and one PCIe 3.0 Express slot for the graphics card. I think it's got two PCIe 8s in there and one M.2. The M.2 is positioned under the graphics card in the motherboard. It's got one RGB header, two system fan headers, and one CPU header. And I went ahead and bought that one because the original motherboard, it was an Asus Prime B350M Plus. And I think that one got fried when I was messing with it. So I couldn't get it to boot. So I just went ahead and bought this motherboard. And I also got 32 gigabytes of RAM. The one with the heat spreader is the original RAM stick that came with it. It was a 16 gigabyte because that's what the Best Buy model came with. And then the other one without the heat spreader was the RAM stick that I used to test my old motherboard because it had a RAM issue where it wouldn't boot. And that's a Kingston DDR4 2133 megahertz RAM stick. And so that's also a 16 gig. So I put both those in this motherboard to get 32 gigs of RAM. Originally, my PC had this stock cooler that AMD supplies with their Ryzen 1700s. It's this one right here. It's an air cooler. It's a very good air cooler, actually. I saw a review of this air cooler, and I found out that this air cooler in the middle of it, that copper slug right there, that there's actually a vapor chamber in there, which is why it cooled so well. But I replaced that with a Cooler Master Liquid 120mm radiator running on a push-pull config. And this one is doing fairly better than the stock cooler, but the stock cooler was also really good. My processor is overclocked to 3.7. That's the clock that I keep it at. I replaced all of the stock fans in this thing. In fact, the stock fans are right there on the ground. Those fans barely pushed any air into the case, and it was heating up very quickly with the GTX 1080, this beast of a 1080 that I got in here. Those fans, the blue ones, those are Corsair AF120s running at 1600 RPM. And I also got some generic Kingwin fans up there just for airflow to help with the temp control on this radiator. This radiator is rear mounted as an exhaust, which isn't the optimal place to mount a radiator, so I figured give it some cool air for intake up there, and it'll help out with the exhaust there. I also added in I think it's a Deep Cool RGB kit. There's a box up there, the Deep Cool RGB receiver, and it's a pretty cool looking kit. I don't know, just for style points, I guess. You can do all sorts of stuff with this thing. Look at that, some effects. Change it to green, blue, white, red. Keep it at red. It's a fairly good looking kit, and so far this is what I have for my PC, and this thing has been a beast for me, running pretty much any game I want at ultra high settings. Especially on a 1080p monitor, this computer should last me a good 5 years without having to upgrade. Now, AMD is releasing a new graphics card called the AMD RX Vega, which is supposed to be better than this 1080. And if it's significantly better than the 1080, I may end up getting that graphics card and slapping it into this build and sell off my 1080. But we won't know yet because that thing is supposed to be releasing in around June. But yeah, so it went from these specs, right? 1050, well, not really a 1050, probably a AMD RX 480, which is infinitely better than a 1050. If you're gonna get this computer, get one with an AMD RX 480. The GTX 1050 Ti and the 1050 stand no chance against an RX 480. 16 gigs of RAM from 32, AMD RX 480 to a GTX 1080. CPUs is the same. Went from the stock cooler to a AIO, all-in-one liquid cooler. Replaced all the stock fans. So pretty much the only thing stock in this computer now is, just to sum things up, is the processor, the storage, and the case itself. So that's it for today. Hope you guys enjoy the video. Like, subscribe, do all that sort of stuff for some more PC upgrade videos here. I'll see you guys later.